Welcome to Intro to Intuitive Eating, a tool to liberate yourself from the prison of diet culture and weight obsession. My name is Lydia Rhino, the program director at the Eating Disorder Foundation, and I am excited to welcome everyone here tonight. Today's workshop is brought to you in collaboration with the Eating Disorder Foundation and Carey Baldwin of Safe Space Nutrition Counseling. I would like to take a moment to share a little about the Eating Disorder Foundation. We are a nonprofit that was founded in 2003 with a mission to be an effective resource in the prevention and elimination of eating disorders through free and accessible education, support, and advocacy. We are a Denver-based organization that is now serving individuals and families both nationally and internationally. I want to thank anyone who made a donation upon registration. We are able to provide free services because of the generosity of our community. I will add the donation link in the chat if you would wish to contribute. If you have any questions for our presenter, I invite you to use the chat feature to communicate with me directly throughout the workshop. The chat is kept confidential and will come to me directly. We'll save time at the end for question and answer after the presentation, and I will deliver those questions to our presenter. We will not be sharing the PowerPoint, however, we are recording tonight, and we will be sending the recording as soon as possible. Now I'd like to take a second to introduce our speaker tonight, Carey Baldwin. She is a registered dietitian and a certified intuitive eating counselor. She began her career working as a clinical dietitian at St. Mark's Hospital in Salt Lake City, where she focused on medical nutrition therapy. After taking a break to stay home with her kids, Carey decided to shift gears away from clinical work and follow her passion, which is helping people who struggle with disordered eating. Carey is a certified intuitive eating counselor and opened her private practice in Denver last year called Safe Space Nutrition Counseling. She cares deeply about inclusivity and is HAES aligned. When she's not helping clients, she loves to travel with her family and spend time in the mountains, either hiking or skiing. Awesome. Well, thank you, Carey, so much for joining the EDF community this evening. I am going to put myself on mute and turn it over to you for the eve.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me to share this presentation with you. I have such a high regard for the work that the Eating Disorder Foundation is engaged in, and I hope that what I share today will be informative and helpful. This will be a very high-level introduction to intuitive eating. So let's get started. So I first wanted to share my personal mission statement. My goal as a non-diet and weight-inclusive dietitian is to create a safe environment for learning and discovery. My number one desire is to help put an end to unnecessary suffering by dismantling diet culture through the principles of intuitive eating. So what to expect? We are going to define what intuitive eating is and why it's worth checking out and how you can start to apply it in your life. I'm not going to talk about my own personal journey tonight, but I do want to let you know that my passion about this topic comes from wounds that happened early in my life as a result of the diet culture that surrounded me. I have a deep desire to help people heal their relationship with food and their bodies so that they can spend their lives focused on the things that matter most. I feel like this quote by Henry Nouwen embodies what many helpers in the ED space are hoping to become. He said, "When our wounds cease to be a source of shame and become a source of healing, we have become wounded healers." I wish I could look each one of you in the eyes and tell you that there is freedom on the other side of weight and food obsession, because I have experienced it myself. So we are born intuitive eaters. We would never try to trick a baby into not being hungry. Their cries for food are not shamed. A child's instincts for food are vital to helping them grow and for their bodies to function properly. We all still have those life-saving instincts. This meme really spoke to me. Says, "I prefer my food without a side of guilt and shame." And that's what we are going to talk about tonight. So let's get started. What is intuitive eating? So intuitive eating is a self-care eating framework which integrates instinct, emotion, and rational thought, and was created by two dietitians, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, in 1995. So intuitive eating is a weight-inclusive, evidence-based model with over 200 studies to date. I actually saw Evelyn speak at a food and nutrition conference in Washington, D.C. in 1997 when I was in my senior year of college. I remember being blown away by what she had to say, and everything she shared was a huge paradigm shift to what I had been learning in my dietetics program. The book is now on its 4th edition, and they have added a workbook. My certification included supervision hours with Evelyn Tribole, and she is a personal hero of mine. The principles of intuitive eating resonated on every level with my own lived experience. And one of my favorite ways to describe what intuitive eating is, Evelyn said it one time, and I just wrote it down. She said, it is a 10-step path out of suffering. And I truly believe that. So what intuitive eating is not, it is not a diet or food plan, and there is nothing to count. It is not used for weight loss, and it is not something you can fail at. So there's no blowing it with intuitive eating. So the weight loss piece can be really tough, and I want to hold space for those who feel that weight loss is the key to fixing your issues. For most of my patients, weight loss is top of mind in our first visit, and I know it can feel like a big letdown when I tell them that I do not focus on weight loss at all. I'm very upfront, and I tell them that as they learn to integrate intuitive eating into their lives, the weight may go down, it may stay the same, or it may go up. It just really depends on their individual circumstances. If they choose to work with me, I will ask my patients to put weight on the back burner as we begin the process of learning about intuitive eating. So intuitive eating is an empowerment tool. Diet culture focuses on control through willpower, but the principles of intuitive eating empower individuals to make choices based on body attunement, nourishment, and satisfaction. So I like to say intuitive eating is an inside job. So when I talk about an inside job, I'm talking about interoceptive awareness, which is our ability to perceive physical sensations that arise within the body. For example, a full bladder, sleepiness, thirst, and hunger is one of those. So I love to use the example of having a full bladder as a physical sensation. It is a normal and natural physical response, and you know what you need to do to relieve yourself. There is no shame in needing to go to the bathroom, and you don't try and trick yourself into not going. And you know how awful it feels when you can't find a bathroom or you wait too long and you're about to explode. If you compare that to the physical sensation of hunger, we often do the opposite. The sensation of hunger is a normal and natural response of our body asking for nourishment so that it can function properly and optimally. Yet we often try to trick our hunger. We feel shame about eating, and we put it off for as long as possible and create a bunch of rules about when and how much we can eat until it feels awful and our body is screaming for food. When we do that over and over again, we start to become disconnected from our hunger and fullness cues because we have been trying to control everything on the outside. So when I say it's an inside job, we are working on getting back in tune with the physical sensations in our body. So weight loss is not part of the intuitive eating framework. So if someone is selling intuitive eating and weight loss and promising weight loss, they are not in alliance with the intuitive eating framework and are most likely not certified to teach it. So I just wanted to put that out there as a red flag because a lot of people are trying to co-opt intuitive eating into their weight loss practice, and that is not appropriate. So the focus is on well-being, not weight. Healthy behavior should be completely independent of how much a person weighs, because weight is not a behavior. Intuitive eating is aligned with health at every size because the pursuit of intentional weight loss is a failed paradigm, which creates health problems, including weight stigma, weight cycling, and eating disorders. All bodies deserve dignity and respect. So weight stigma and anti-fat bias fuels the diet industry, which is currently a $76 billion industry, and it's projected to be at over $300 billion by 2030. They profit on their products not working and blaming it on you. So weight stigma is defined as the discriminatory acts and ideologies targeted towards individuals because of their weight and size. Weight stigma also undermines health behaviors and preventative care, causing disordered eating, decreased physical activity, healthcare avoidance, and weight gain. So in a study by Wu and Berry, they conclude that weight stigma increases diabetes risk, increases cortisol level, increases oxidative stress level, increases C-reactive protein level, which is related to inflammation, increases eating disturbances, depression, anxiety, body image dissatisfaction, and low self-esteem. Weight cycling is losing weight and regaining it over and over again. It's also called yo-yo dieting. And 3 meta-analysis studies, they concluded that weight cycling increases all-cause mortality, increases cardiovascular mortality, increases cardiovascular disease, and hypertension. So in a study titled The Weight Inclusive versus Weight Normative Approach to Health, published in 2014, Tracy Tilka and her colleagues concluded that it is unethical to continue to prescribe weight loss to patients and communities as a pathway to health, knowing the associated outcomes are connected to further stigmatization, poor health, and well-being. So you cannot know how healthy a person is by looking at them. And I just want to give a quick example from my own life. A couple of years ago, I got a virus that triggered something called hyperthyroiditis in my body. I was running fevers every night. My heart was always racing and my emotions were all over the place. Let's just say I was a complete mess. And because it was during the COVID pandemic, I was thinking maybe I had COVID, even though I tested negative, or maybe it was a reaction to the vaccine. And so I didn't go into the doctor for a few weeks. As a result of the nightly fevers and increased heart rate, I lost quite a bit of weight because of all that my body was doing to try and function. It was during the holidays, so I made myself attend some of the holiday parties with my family. And every time someone would compliment me on how I looked and asked if I'd lost weight, it totally messed with me. I had done so much work over the years to root out my weight obsession, and now I was getting praise for losing weight by being sick. Obviously, these people did not mean harm and didn't know my situation, but I definitely had to do some deep inner work to not let the compliments for unintentional weight loss get to me. Once I went to the doctor and figured out what was going on, I got on the right meds and eventually recovered, and my weight slowly returned. I'm not going to lie and say I was thrilled to be back at my previous size, but I will say that I was so grateful that my health returned and I saw that my body needed to be back to that weight because that is the healthiest place for me. This reinforced for me the message that you should never comment on someone's weight, good or bad. So if I can't promise you weight loss with intuitive eating, then what can I say to encourage you to try it? I think a study might do the trick. In a meta-analysis that included 97 studies in 2021, the researchers found that the practice of intuitive eating increased in body appreciation, body image flexibility, body function, mindfulness, positive affect, self-compassion, self-esteem, and general well-being. And it decreased eating disorder, psychopathology, shape and weight concerns, internalization of beauty ideals, binge and purge symptoms, emotional eating, low interoceptive awareness, anxiety symptoms, and depressive symptoms. So hopefully all those things together beat out the promise of weight loss. So now we are to the 10 principles of intuitive eating, and the principles work in 2 key ways. By helping you cultivate attunement to the physical sensations that arise from within your body to get both your biological and psychological needs met. And 2, by removing the obstacles and disruptors to attunement, which usually come in the mind in the form of rules, beliefs, and thoughts. So the process of intuitive eating is a practice which honors both physical and mental health. Some principles may need to be focused on more than others. There are 10 principles, but they don't need to be practiced or applied in order. However, with my patients, I usually always start with the first one and end with the last. And the ones in between, I will kind of mix up as needed. I want to give a little caveat here and say that intuitive eating can often be seen as the ultimate goal in eating disorder recovery, but applying it may need to occur in phases as recovery is very individualized for each person. And some of the principles, especially the hunger and fullness principles, will not be appropriate during the acute phase of an eating disorder, most specifically anorexia, and could actually cause harm. This should be monitored by your healthcare team, and the principles should be applied when best appropriate for recovery. Okay, so I'm just going to start with number 1, and we are going to go through each principle, just a kind of a brief explanation of each principle. So the first principle is reject the diet mentality. So study after study shows that dieting for the purpose of weight loss leads to more weight gain. In addition, the focus and preoccupation on weight leads to body dissatisfaction and weight stigma, which negatively impacts health. So there's, I love the research behind all of these principles, and here are just a few on the outcomes of dieting. So dieting is a consistent predictor of weight gain. Up to 2/3 of dieters will regain more weight than was lost. 1/3 to 2/3 of dieters regained weight within 1 year, and most regained by 5 years. Dieting is generally ineffective for weight loss and is associated with weight gain and poor mental health. Dieting is the most important predictor of new eating disorders in adolescents. Adolescent girls who diet frequently are 12 times as likely to binge eat as girls who don't diet. And in a study of 14 and 15-year-olds, dieting was the most important predictor of developing an eating disorder. Those who dieted moderately were 5 times more likely, and those who practiced extreme restriction were 18 times more likely than those who did not diet. Let's see. So I just want to take a minute to define diet culture. And this is a definition given by Christy Harrison, who is a registered dietitian and wrote the book Anti-Diet, which I highly recommend. So she defined it as a system of beliefs that equate thinness, muscularity, and particular body shapes with health and moral virtue, promotes weight loss and body reshaping as a means of attaining higher status, demonizes certain foods and food groups while elevating others, and oppresses people who don't match its supposed picture of health. So some examples of diet culture. We've got the keto diet here. We have ice cream labeled guilt-free. So this is like any type of labels that are moralizing food. We've got the skinny pop. There was a TikTok trend talking about legging legs, 7-day cleanse, 3-day detox, intermittent fasting. This is the Barbie monologue. She said, you have to be thin, but not too thin. You can never say you want to be thin, but you have to say you want to be healthy. She was, kind of encapsulating what diet culture is in that monologue. There's the magazines, the get thin fast tactics that they use. This is some sort of supplement that promises fat burning while you sleep. 75 hard. So these are just like random examples that I just threw up, but other examples include earning food through exercise, before and after photos, body as a business card, almond mom accounts, wellness influencers promoting biohacking, counting macros. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So can we take a moment to get angry? It makes sense that so many people struggle with disordered eating practices because diet culture is the water we swim in. The clearest indicator that your anger is healthy is that it leaves you feeling okay about yourself. Like, my struggles with body shame and disordered eating are not because I wasn't strong enough to be in control, but it's because I was a victim of diet culture and all the messaging that told me I was insufficient. I hope this anger can help you feel better about yourself right now. When a product doesn't work, do you blame the consumer? No. I don't think any of us would take a drug that the doctor explained might work at the beginning, but then will stop working and will actually make things worse. Somehow the diet industry has done a great job convincing people that it's their fault their products don't work. It's maddening. It really is. So diet culture has normalized an unhealthy relationship with food and encourages disordered eating behaviors. Diet culture disrupts self-trust. Diet culture equals suffering. So on to principle number 2 is honor your hunger. Learning to trust your body's signals is an important step to becoming an intuitive eater. And hunger is a biological signal that your body needs energy or food to function properly. When we ignore the hunger signal for too long, the intensity of that signal turns into primal hunger. Primal hunger is a powerful biological response that almost always causes overeating, even in people who are not trying to restrict. When it comes to the sensation of hunger, there's a problem in our culture. People are at war with their bodies. We start to disconnect from our bodies by trying to trick our hunger. So the Minnesota starvation experiment was a landmark study conducted during World War II by researchers at the University of Minnesota. It was designed to help famine sufferers and men who were conscious objectors to the war and had superior physical and mental health were selected to participate. The first 3 months, they ate as they pleased, which was about 3,500 calories each. And the next 6 months was a semi-starvation period. Their calorie intake was cut in half to around 1,570 calories per day. So the impact of semi-starvation was dramatic and mirrors many of the symptoms of chronic dieting. So their metabolic rate decreased by 40%. They became obsessed with food. Their cravings were constant, and they talked about food all the time. Eating styles changed. They were both ravenous and stalling to finish a meal. They had GI distress and headaches. They would exercise to earn more food rations, and their personalities actually changed. They had apathy, irritability, moodiness, and depression. During the refeeding period, when they were able to eat at will again, hunger pains became more intense and they found it difficult to stop eating. The men had a hard time reading their own hunger cues, and they developed binge eating and purging behaviors. Some men developed an irrational fear of food insecurity. Even after 5 months, many continued with these behaviors and developed body image issues. So the active restriction and extreme dieting impacts an individual's physical, social, behavioral, and psychological well-being. This study is considered one of the most critical pieces of psychoeducation to share in the treatment of eating disorders. Okay, we're moving on to number 3, which is make peace with food. So we need to stop the food fight and give yourself unconditional permission to eat. There are no forbidden foods. Food restriction increases desires for forbidden foods and triggers cravings. Once you truly know that you can eat whatever you want, the intensity and desire to eat greatly diminishes. So this is a very scary principle for many people. They often will say, if you give me unconditional permission to eat, I will never stop eating. And I want to validate that it is very scary for people, but I also want to emphasize that if you give yourself unconditional permission to eat, that is not the case. And let me tell you why. So let's talk about the habituation response. There have been a lot of studies on habituation, and I have seen it play out in my own life and with my kids. I'm sure we've all seen children, and maybe this was even you, whose parents would not allow sweets or candy in the house. And then the kids binge eat it when they go over to a friend's or at a party. And then there are the parents who have candy bowl out at all times in their house, and the kids aren't interested in it near as much. So habituation is the repeated eating of the same. This was from a study and they concluded that the repeated eating of the same food causes a decrease in behavioral and psychological responses. In other words, when you eat a food over and over, it loses its appeal. Chronic dieters often experience a lack of habituation. Dieting increases the desirability of the forbidden foods, and when someone goes off a diet or has a cheat day, they often eat those foods in excess. So with habituation, the novelty wears off. If you're trying to restrict certain foods, they stay scary and exciting. So I will often have my patients make a list of their forbidden foods, the things that they just are, kind of scary. And then we choose one to habituate, and then we do that again and again. And it's kind of like exposure therapy, and it is a fascinating exercise to watch and to be a part of. And I'm always really excited to see how they do, and it's always such a fascinating experience. So food restriction leads to binge eating. And study after study indicate that no matter what kind of restriction or who it is, binging occurs. So this happens with dieting, with famine, in war, when there's food insecurity, and fasting. So it's just a common response to food restriction. There's the idea that we call Last Supper eating. So when there's low habituation combined with the fear of never being able to eat a certain food again, which often happens when someone's about to start a diet, this could result in overeating that often feels out of control. Even just the thought of going on a diet can trigger a panic response and can lead to Last Supper eating. So number 4 is challenge the food police. So the food police are the voices in our head that monitor the unreasonable rules that diet culture has created. The food police monitor the morality of food with labels like bad, sinful, tempting, or decadent. The result is guilt. So in a survey of over 2,000 adults, 45% said they feel guilty after eating foods they like. So Evelyn Tribole once said, unless you stole the food or killed the chef, there is no place for morality or guilt in eating. So food rules may have started in family systems, at school, or among friends. The prevailing diet culture defines many of the rules. So when I was a teenager in the 90s, it was the low-fat craze. And that kind of defined all the rules. The rules that we adopt in our mind interfere with our ability to feel our body's signals. Diet culture has caused confusion and destroyed self-trust. So counting macros, calories, or exchanges does not help you connect to your body. So here's just a few examples of thoughts that turn into rules. So you think thin equals healthy. So the rule would be, I will count macros to lose weight for my health. You might think, I must earn the food I enjoy. So you make a rule that you will run 5 miles before you let yourself eat dessert. You might think carbs will make me gain weight. So your rule is, I will not eat bread. You think sugar is toxic. So your rule is no candy is allowed in the house. And then you have a thought that you need to regularly reset your body because of some influencer that told you that. So you make a rule that you will do a juice cleanse the first day of every month. So these are just some examples of the thoughts that turn into rules into our. So the key defense to the food police, to those thoughts, is compassionate self-awareness, non-judgmental reframing of thoughts, and curiosity. So observe your thoughts without judgment. Just simply observe and notice. So for example, we were on a long bike ride with some friends last week, and we had stopped at a cafe for some delicious hamburgers and fries. One of my friends commented that they needed to burn off the meal that they had just eaten. And I reframed that in my mind by thinking how I would use the energy from the lunch we had to fuel the rest of our ride. Just that simple reframe was very empowering and erased the guilt or shame that I might have felt after hearing that statement. So this graphic is from the Intuitive Eating book, and I found it really helpful as I think about how I want my patients to deal with setbacks and negative thoughts around food in their bodies. So it's called the spiral of healing, and this is the way out of judgmental self-talk. So the little loops represent moments of returning to past behaviors. These moments allow for reflection. One might see them as setbacks, but an intuitive eater would see them as learning experiences. So for example, I'm just making up someone, but someone named Scott doesn't take a snack with him to work and gets home later than usual because of some extra things that popped up at the end of the day. As he's walking through the door, primal hunger has set in, and he eats so much for dinner that he feels sick inside. Guilt and shame ensue. He starts to punish himself by saying he will restrict tomorrow or will exercise more to make up for it. As he starts to realize that he's spiraling into past behaviors, He gets curious about why that happened and realizes that he needs to be more compassionate with himself. He didn't plan for the extra tasks that came up at the end of the day. Scott plans to take some extra snacks the next day that he can leave in his desk, and also realizes that he probably should have eaten a little more for lunch. He saw that setback as a learning experience and not as a failure. That is the way of intuitive eater. So number 5 is discover the satisfaction factor. So we are wired to enjoy eating. It's part of survival. Diet culture has taken the pleasure out of eating for many people. There are foods to avoid, rules to be followed, and then guilt ensues when we struggle. If you settle for food that doesn't match what you desire, it will often leave you wanting. So what do you really want? Be committed to choosing the foods you truly enjoy without applying moralistic judgment. If you don't love it, don't eat it. And if you love it, savor it. Now, I want to acknowledge that this is a privilege, that people who struggle with food insecurity don't often get to have this privilege of, eating what they love or not eating, So I just want to acknowledge that. But it's important to stay present, eat mindfully and slowly so you can cultivate body awareness and feel the many sensations of eating. Moderate hunger is key. Food tastes better when you are moderately hungry. When you are ravenous, it's hard to even notice the taste. When you are full, the pleasure is less noticeable and eating can even be uncomfortable. So I have a friend who always ordered a salad when they went out to eat, even though everything else on the menu sounded way better to them. Let me say that there's nothing wrong with ordering a salad. Oops, sorry. Even if that's what you want, if that's what you truly want. But in her case, she was doing it because she had made a rule for herself about eating out. Inevitably, she would find herself sneaking fries or other bites of her husband's or children's plates, and then coming home, and she would raid the pantry because she wasn't truly satisfied with her meal. When she started focusing on this principle, she was so excited to actually order something that she truly wanted. She found that she loved her meals out so much more. They were more filling, and she noticed she would feel fullness earlier than she expected. She would often stop eating when the food stopped tasting as good and would take the rest home for leftovers that she could enjoy later in the evening if she got hungry again, or the next day for lunch. She found so much joy in this new way of eating, and she still would order salads on occasion, not because she had to, but because they sounded good. So that is just an example of discovering the satisfaction factor in eating. So distraction interferes with satisfaction. So in this study, participants were divided into 2 groups. The distracted group ate lunch while playing a video game, and the non-distracted group ate the same meal but without the game. So when compared with the non-distracted group, the distracted group ate faster, couldn't remember what they ate more food, reported feeling significantly less full, and increased their meal size later in the day. So when we eat while distracted, we miss out on the eating experience because we become mentally disconnected from our body. This disconnect decreases our satisfaction and leaves us wanting more food than if we would have been fully present in our eating experience. So number 6 is feel your fullness. So this is trusting yourself, learning to recognize comfortable satiety, having conscious awareness, which is neutrally observing your eating by taking a time out to regroup and assess where you are. Do a taste check, a satiety check. So beware of fake fullness. Air food fills up the stomach, but offers little sustenance or staying power. So some examples of air food would be like coffee, diet drinks, low-calorie snacks, things people use to try and trick their hunger, to like fill them up, but then it doesn't last. So there's a lot of that happening in diet culture. So many chronic dieters feel like they always need to clean their plate because it's their allotted portion controlled meal, or they had waited until they were ravenous to eat, or as the case with people who try intermittent fasting, it's their allowed time frame to eat. When you can trust your body's cues, it's much easier to realize when your body is full and satisfied. Sometimes that feeling comes before you have eaten everything on your plate, and other times you'll need to get seconds. So the clean your plate mentality harms your ability to respect your fullness. Diets reinforce this behavior because there are often legal times for eating and controlled portions. And this is a rule that interferes with your ability to listen to your body's satiety signals. Okay, number 7 is cope with your emotions with kindness. So are you using food to cope? If you continue to eat past fullness, then what other need are you trying to feel with food? Emotional eating is triggered by feelings and is not a component of biological hunger. Using food to cope should not cause guilt and is not a moral crime. Use self-compassion and get curious about your emotions and how you deal with them. So emotional eating covers a wide spectrum of emotions. It can be very positive, like when you're celebrating a special event, like a wedding or a birthday cake, or watching the Super Bowl with friends. It can also be destructive, like when you're eating to numb difficult feelings, or even to punish yourself as a result of negative self-talk. So there was an emotional eating study, and in a study of more than 3,500 women and men, it was found that former and current dieters experience more emotional eating than those with no diet history. So dieting itself can trigger emotions, which ultimately lead to using food as your primary coping mechanism for dealing with these feelings. So emotional triggers can be boredom, bribery, reward, excitement, soothing, love, anger, stress, anxiety, mild depression, and connection. So food may comfort, distract, or numb difficult emotions, but it won't solve the problem. You will ultimately have to deal with the source of the emotion. So this is a quote from the workbook that I love, and it says, "It is important to acknowledge how emotional eating has served you. If you appreciate that you are actually trying to take care of yourself by using or restricting food when you knew no other way, it will help you mourn the loss of the behavior as you give it up. At the same time, it will help you develop a sense of compassion for your struggle." This is also from the book. Food is love, food is comfort, food is reward, food is a reliable friend, and sometimes food becomes your only friend in moments of pain and loneliness. And that is okay. It is okay to have that, and I want you to feel compassion for yourself in those moments when food is used for that. So let's talk about meeting your needs. So seek nurturance through self-care, deal with your feelings, journal, talk with someone you trust, let yourself cry, find a different distractor, a good book, a movie, walk, nap, call a friend, play a game, go on a drive, organize a closet, learn to sit with your feelings. So I also want to mention that many people label themselves as emotional eaters when they are actually dealing with deprivation, and they may not realize it. Having thoughts about food is one way that the body is telling us that it is hungry. So it's important to get curious about what's happening in your body when you think you're eating because of emotion and not hunger. So number 8 is respect your body. So you need to accept your genetic blueprint. If your shoe size is a 9, would you expect to fit into a 7? I don't think so, right? So practice gratitude. What are all the things your body lets you do? And also practice self-care. Your body deserves to be fed, treated with dignity, dressed comfortably, to be touched affectionately with your consent and respect, and to move comfortably. And I will add that this is where any medical needs might come into play. If you have a food allergy or intolerance or a medical condition that requires adjustment to how you eat, you respect the needs of your body for optimal health. So how can I respect a body that I don't love? So these are 3 pieces of advice that I tell people. Throw away the scale. It is a tool of diet culture's oppression and gets in the way of finding joy in your here and now body. Stop body checking. Body comparison is a dangerous game. Comparison is the thief of joy. And watch your language. Negative body talk of your own or others is disrespectful and perpetuates weight stigma. Refraining from negative body talk reduces body dissatisfaction, dieting, and disordered eating. Never comment on someone's weight. I love these quotes by Lindsay and Lexi Kite. Their book, More Than a Body, is one that I highly recommend. They say your body is an instrument, not an ornament. And positive body image isn't believing your body looks good. It's knowing your body is good, regardless of how it looks. And then another one from the Intuitive Eating book says, love it for what it can do for you. Love it by taking good care of it. It has done so much for you. Love it by presenting yourself in ways that appreciate your own personal aesthetic. So number 9 is movement, feel the difference. So you need to just disconnect exercise from weight loss because it minimizes the myriad of significant health benefits of movement. Focus on how it feels. Can you handle stress better? Do you feel more energized? Do you sleep better? Make it a priority. Make an appointment with yourself and honor it like you would honor any other appointment. Have a good time. Is there an activity that you enjoy? People will repeat activities that feel good. Sitting less is important. It's a person can now eat, work, shop, bank, and socialize without having to leave the comfort of their chair. So just standing up throughout the day is an important factor in movement. And rest. Sometimes taking care of yourself means choosing not to exercise. And so the benefits of physical activity, it reduces health risks like cancer, depression, heart disease, hypertension, insulin resistance, osteoporosis, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and premature death. And it improves quality of life. Better bone density, gray matter in the brain increases, cognition and memory increases, and the gut microbiota increases, satiety cues increase, lean body mass, cardiovascular circulation, strength, balance, mood, stamina, appetite regulation, stress tolerance, sleep quality. So, the benefits of physical activity are enormous, and getting movement into your day only brings positive results. So definitely encourage that piece and try and find ways that you can incorporate it into your life. It does not need to be anything that's guilt-inducing, shame-inducing. It needs to be things that you enjoy, that you love doing. It doesn't need to cause any sort of pain. So please do that. Number 10 is honor your health with gentle nutrition. There's a reason why we save the nutrition piece for the last one, because if you start incorporating nutrition early on, people will start to make it into rules. So the gentle nutrition piece needs to be last. So we focus on body food choice congruence. So making food choices based on health and body functioning as well as pleasure. Stop focusing on restriction and start focusing on what you can add to improve the functioning of your bodies. Follow sound nutrition advice from trusted sources. Do they have educational credentials related to food science and nutrition? So please be picky about who you take nutrition advice from. There are so many influencers with absolutely no educational background in nutrition who are selling all sorts of crappy advice. Please be especially wary of wellness influencers who are also selling a product like supplements or promising big weight loss results. Those are big red flags, in my opinion. So stop worrying about food. It's good for your health. A food psychologist, Paul Rosen, and his research team conducted a study of 4 countries and found that the French are the most food pleasure-oriented and least health-oriented. In contrast, Americans had the worst of both worlds. They had the greatest worry over their health and eating and greater dissatisfaction with what they ate. Rosen concluded that the negative impact of worry and stress over healthy eating may have a more profound effect on health than the actual food consumed. So my nutrition advice from a registered dietitian. Eat enough food to feed your metabolism. Eat plenty of whole grains, fruits, veggies, and beans. They contain fiber to help your digestion and provide vitamins and minerals. Eat enough protein for cellular repair and for hormone production. Eat plenty of carbs for energy. Drink plenty of water to help with digestion, blood volume, and cleansing the kidneys. Eat enough fat for satiety, building cell walls, vitamin absorption, and hormone production. Allow for some fun foods for simple pleasure. Variety, moderation, and balance. Okay, you've got this. When I think about what intuitive eating has done for me in my life, 2 words come to mind: peace and ease. I hope this message has resonated with many of you and that you can start your journey to peace with food and your body. Thank you. That's it.
Awesome, Carey. That was so wonderful. I really appreciate the way that you spoke about this so compassionately and just really like bringing in all of the studies. I think it's really helpful for so many of us to hear just the science that's actually behind intuitive eating and around this when we get so many of those mixed messages and information from folks that don't have a background in nutrition and in intuitive eating and the way that it's packaged and sold to us so easily in our society. So thank you for bringing this forward. I do have some questions in the chat that I want to bring to you. So the first one that we received is, can your metabolic rate recover after engaging in restricting and binging behaviors?
Yes, I think so, but it takes time. You just got to get, it's a long, process. It's especially, it kind of depending on how long of a time you were doing it for. But I definitely think when you get to a place of peace and ease and the stress is taken out of your life, I most definitely feel like things, there's a set point weight theory that I actually believe in. And I think, but there's often this idea that you'll get back to the weight that you were smallest at. And that's not necessarily always going to happen because set point weights can increase over time based on your metabolic rate. So I don't want you to feel like there's no hope for me now that I've been restricting so much. I've ruined my body. I've ruined, my metabolism. I definitely don't think that's the case at all. So there's hope.
Beautiful. I love that. It's always helpful to hear just from another perspective when we get so many of those messages of like the lasting effects and wanting to hear just, having comfort in knowing that things can change and we're able to engage in different ways to help our bodies readjust and get back to that set point. Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Our next one is, I have a damaged vagus nerve from a stomach surgery when this person was younger and have never had any sensations of hunger or fullness. For people who have no hunger cues, how can they develop awareness of what they need and eat intuitively?
Okay, that is a great question. I think that's where you definitely would want to work with a dietitian. And there might be, room for a meal plan in that situation, and giving you some, timings, because if you do not have, and I know this happens sometimes with people who have severe eating disorders, that their hunger and fullness cues go away. And so for them, having some sort of scheduled eating pattern in a meal plan is important. So I would, that is a unique situation. Those 2 principles, I think you would need to kind of put on the back burner for a little bit, but you can still focus on all the other ones and then work with a dietitian and a doctor to help you, figure out what your needs might be. So
I was thinking that one would be a more like personal journey question around, like maybe getting connected with a dietitian that can provide more of that structure for those folks that might struggle with that. I've heard that talked about a lot, especially in our recovery community, around the hunger and fullness and being not sure when that's going to come back online or how we can navigate still making sure that we're getting our nutrition in.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, next one. I believe this question came in around, it was either, I think, between like 5 and 6, like the steps. And it was, what is a taste check?
Oh, okay. So, so I don't know if you've noticed, but when you're, really hungry and you start eating a meal, like especially if it's a meal that you're really excited about, it just tastes delicious and you're just like, yum, this is so great. And you're going along. And then at some point, as you start to get full, the taste isn't as exciting, it's not something that you're feeling as much anymore. And and maybe you're starting to get a little bit more uncomfortable. So it's this idea of, once the food stops tasting good, do you need to keep eating it? Or if you feel like some fullness coming on, do you just keep going? Or is that a good time to take a break and to stop? And, it's kind of this idea of helping you understand where your fullness, can you stop sooner so that you don't get to an uncomfortable phase? If that makes sense. So yeah. And I love to actually do this when I'm eating out, especially at a like amazing restaurant, because when I love to stop eating and still, if I'm feeling like, okay, it's not tasting as good anymore, or I'm getting kind of full, because then I know, like, okay, if I stop now, then maybe I will be able to eat a little dessert, or I can take this home as a leftover and actually enjoy it again when I'm actually hungry, instead of just plowing through it and being like, oh, So I love being able to take, a really delicious meal home and having it later when I'm actually hungry, or eating it, later. Anyway, so I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. It definitely sounds like a pause to check in with ourselves and to say, like, hey, is this still feeling the same way that it did, a couple minutes ago? Or am I able to say, like, yeah, maybe now is a good time to pause and, consider next steps with it, whether that be, having some room for dessert and being able to enjoy it later. It definitely feels like a pause to me around checking in with ourselves and being able to say, like, yeah, is this still tasting the same? And is now a good time for a pause? But another way to just get reconnected with our bodies. Awesome. All right, this is our last question. If someone is 6 months into recovery, will their extreme hunger cues or their extreme hunger slow down, and will they keep gaining weight forever?
No, I mean, yes, and yes, it will slow down, and no, they will not keep gaining weight. So I don't know the specific situation, but yeah, like it, there's things will even out. And I'm really proud of this person for being 6 months into recovery. That's a huge deal. And it will get better, and just keep going. And you're not going to, your body will stabilize, and and hopefully you will find peace. So yeah, I want to definitely give you hope there. So
I know it's one of the questions that whenever I hear a question like that, it always brings back like the reminder of like the black and white thinking and how it can feel very much like all or nothing in the process of recovery, and just being always like, I know it's a broken record and I always say it, but like trusting the process and just like trusting that our bodies are going to get back to a set place, and that our hunger will slow down when we're not in that starvation mindset or any of those patterns. So definitely holding a lot of compassion for anyone that's navigating this, because it's really hard to see when you're in it, and navigating recovery 6 months in is phenomenal. And I can also, I can remember that feeling of saying, like, is this going to be the same way that my recovery is going to be this whole time? And again, from my perspective and my lived experience, It has not been. So yes, very much on the same page as you, Carey. Awesome. Well, thank you so incredibly much for your wisdom and all that you've brought to us tonight. And thank you everyone for joining us and creating such a beautiful space for us to talk about intuitive eating. Awesome. Well, we are going to get this uploaded to YouTube in hopefully the next couple days. And I encourage if anyone has questions for Carey or would like to set up a consult or anything of that nature, her information is on the screen. So please feel free to reach out. And again, thank you all for joining us and being a part of this evening.
Thank you.